Today, basically, we're...
Yeah, you gotta come up to the microphone. Sorry.
So today, we're taking to the streets, to make sure that we're holding Providence Police Department accountable. We've all saw the uprise that was happening over the summer. The numbers have dropped, drastically, but that doesn't mean that the police brutality is not still happening. They're still abusing their power. We all have heard of the AG's decision that, there won't be any charges, there won't be any, suspensions further than the 2 days for what he did to Jhamal. And they keep getting away with shit. They keep sliding right under the radar. They're never held accountable. Everything is like in cahoots. And it's like, it's time that we take to the streets. Well, we've been taking to the streets, but we have to keep taking to the streets. We have to keep demanding justice. We can't let them think that, what they do to us will just always go unchallenged, unchecked, and make it seem like we're sleeping. And I know I've suffered brutality at the hands of Providence Police and more. And it's just like, it's getting to a point where regardless of the season, regardless of the time, what's going on in our personal lives, we all know we're in a pandemic, we still have to take to the streets, we still have to demand justice and show up together. Mark, you want to say something?
I think this is kind of a unification with the whole country and brutality throughout all of our states in the country and the world. Jhamal is just one name in this. I will say, with respect to my son's case, I have to I can't really speak too much, but I am here in representation, and I mean, I'm not happy about the decisions that were made. It just it's a disgrace. I mean, 2-day suspension. You have the AG saying there was a pursuit, and then you have the Providence Public Safety Commissioner saying there was no pursuit. I mean, they can't even agree within themselves on what they're saying. So that is who is organized and responsible for your safety. So I mean, you could think about it like that. Your safety is in their hands, and they can't even have a decision that they even discuss with themselves, I guess. But we're here, and like I said, it's not just about my son. This is something that, and I've said from the beginning that, it's not just about my son. That I'm doing this for everyone, for your kids, for your brothers and sisters, your fathers and mothers. It has to stop. And it's not all cops. It's not all people on bikes that's doing something wrong. It's not all cops that's doing something wrong. I mean, we all have to be held accountable for our decisions. I've been held accountable for my decisions. I've been incarcerated. I've made a lot of bad decisions, and we all have to be held accountable. And I think if we don't stand up, that it's going to continue. And this is a small crowd right here, but it's a crowd. It's somebody. It's how it starts. And we all have to stand together, because until it's your family member or friend, you feel like you don't have to be out here. There was all these people when it all first happened at that protest, standing behind a little 3-foot, bike fence barricade, talking all that junk to the cops, and then when the cops started moving, they all started running. Where are you now? That's what I asked, and that's what I was saying. We didn't need you out there breaking things and and making threats. You know, we didn't need you for that. You know, because obviously you didn't want to do that anyways. We need you out here organizing like these young kids and you know, people that, you know, are trying to get things done and trying to get this city safe. And you know, help in a big number where it goes across the country where it gets noticed. You know?
Thank you, Mark, for that. You know, while what Mark is saying is 100%, you know, the focus of why we're here. You know, when we do something wrong, we get held accountable. You know, poor working class people, we have to, you know, really follow the laws, or the laws crack down on us. However, officers have qualified immunity to, you know, brutalize us, to do whatever they want to us, and they still keep their jobs. They still get paid. But I do want to stress that, you know, a diversity of tactics is very important in this fight. You know, dismantling the state is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not something that's going to happen with peaceful protest. So this march, this action is not a condemnation of people who, you know, use violence against officers or against the state. State-sanctioned violence happens to us every single day. Not providing everyone free healthcare is violence. Not giving everyone free housing when there's more houses than homeless is also violence. Not having free education is also violence. So when oppressed people finally react to the violence that's inflicted upon them on a day-to-day basis, that is not violence, that's them reacting to violence that's bestowed upon them every single day. So we don't condemn, you know, there's no bad protesters and there's no good cops. We stand on that firmly. You know, we're here to raise awareness. We're here to make sure that everybody knows what's happening in Providence, that protests are not dying down, that we're not just disappearing. Mutual aid is happening every single day, every single week, every single month, and we're standing together as a community. But we welcome everybody in this fight. It's not going to be done one way, and one tactic is not the only way that we're going to approach this state and win. So I did want to make sure, you know, we put that in there. And I'm going to invite Belanoka and Anita Bruno to come up and speak.
Hi, my name is Belanoka. I'm a Narragansett tribal elder. And I want to remind everyone of January 6th, the attack on the Capitol. It exposed an awful lot, and we keep exposing. Spirit keeps exposing. And what it's exposing is the infiltration in these departments, in the police department, policemen up at the Capitol, politicians up at the Capitol, lawyers up at the Capitol. It was domestic terrorism, and it's here in Rhode Island. It's in our police stations. It's in our courts. It's with our judges. We can't get a fair shake until we get rid of this white supremacy. They have trumped up charges on them. They have fines on them. They are holding their breath till they can't breathe. They are doing things unimaginable to our young adults. And it's time for all of us to stand up and say enough is enough. Everybody talks a good game from where they stand. I live in South County, and I don't see any of our brown people up in South County over by the beaches enjoying Grandfather Ocean, because it's set up and it's designed that way. Keep the bus from that area. We don't want them there. We talk good about them around times when it's time to vote and we need their support. Look at the black vote rocked this year in 2020. It rocked. Stacey Abrams and others made it possible for people to be in their positions today. The two senators to be in there, John Ossoff to be in his position, and others. So I ask you to start writing letters, start speaking up. Just because voting is over and you don't need us anymore, does not mean that our kids don't need you. You need us, well, we need you, and you better start standing up for our children, because enough is enough. Get these white supremacists out of these buildings, out of the police station, out of the courts, from the judge's bench. Just get them out. There's no place in our world for them.
As I drove past the Providence Safety Complex on my way here, I noticed the Providence Police Department barricading streets. I asked one of the officers if he understands that the right to protest is our First Amendment right. He said yes. I asked him if he understands that blocking the streets is a violation of that right. He said yes. I was on a meeting today with Commissioner Parry discussing this case. And he talked a lot about policy and policy violations. He did mention that there is more that he can do, but he chooses not to. He did mention that the officer's cruiser and Jhamal's moped doesn't look like it collided, right? And he put the weight of what happened to Jhamal on the stop sign. I'm not very well versed in legal jargon, but I have common sense to read up things. And I read about first-degree murder, and I read about second-degree murder. And second-degree murder states about reckless endangerment. So what I noticed in the video that I watched of that horrendous act was that the officer lost control of his cruiser. And in doing so, he hit the stop sign, and the stop sign hit Jhamal. And whereas it wasn't his intent, although we could argue that, whereas it wasn't his intent to run into Jhamal, his reckless endangerment allowed him to hit that stop sign, which allowed the stop sign to hit Jhamal, which put Jhamal in a coma where he's fighting for his life. And to understand the severity of that, if he makes it out of that coma, where is his quality of life going to be going forward? So we have to ask ourselves, what is justice? What is accountability? Who is responsible for this young man's loss of quality of life, which is a human right above all else? Unless we should not ever forget that, and we should all come together to make sure that his voice is uplifted and that that is heard across the world. Sorry.
I just wanted to add that while we're standing here, we're trying to, as a family, figure out where my son is going to go, because our medical is not covering him staying where he's at. So I plead with the City of Providence, the state of Rhode Island, to assist us in assuring that my son gets the best possible medical attention there is, and stay where he's at, and help to make sure that he stays there. Kessler Hospital is the 4th in the country, and we struggled to get him there, and had to pay for transport and everything, and they're talking about sending him home. My son still has a G-tube. There's other things. It's hard to try to fight for justice and everything and at the same time not say anything that's gonna affect the case that his attorneys filed yesterday. But his recovery is what's most important to me. You know, not at the end of a case how much he gets, you know. Him fighting for his life, him coming home on his own will is what's important to me. And it means something, and it says something about this city when not once have we gotten anything saying, you know, we're sorry, how's your son? You know, it just feels like all they care is about is how this ends for them, you know? And the ending, like I said, is not important to me. And, you know, my family might not feel the same, the attorneys might not feel the same, but I'm worried about today and where my son's at, where he stands in his recovery. That's it.
Peace, everyone. My name is Andira. And before we continue our march to the safety complex to address the Providence Police directly, just want to reiterate, at the last demonstration we held for Jhamal, temperatures between the Providence community and the police were at a boil that led to a steam, right? Because it's bigger than Jhamal. Providence police have been on essentially on a riot spree all summer. So we're here to demand that we reopen the case, right? Actually, all the cases of police brutality here in Providence, in Rhode Island, just generally. Also, full reparations, right, for Jhamal's family. They shouldn't be left with any bill, right? For any medical bills, they also need to be paid for any distress that was caused. And third is to also uplift the demands of defunding Providence Police by 70%, because clearly we're not going to pay them even more to brutalize us. So again, if we can continue this march over to the safety complex where we could address the Providence Police directly. Thank you.